Ksenia Person, and this is Fox News. Tonight we will be having a celebrity segment featuring an extraordinary case of success despite having to face struggles along the way. We are going to tell the story of Ksenia Sav and how she became the most famous female pianist in the world. This is her story.
This is a photograph of Ksenia at the age of 2. It was before she was diagnosed with polio and before she began to take her lessons. Rosa Vransky, her mother, said that even though Ksenia was very young at the time, she had a natural talent for music, and she knew that Ksenia would become famous. Rose, what was it like to have your daughter diagnosed with polio at the age of 7?
Well, it was very difficult, you can imagine, as a mother, to hear that your daughter wouldn't be able to walk again for the rest of her life. I didn't know much about the disease at that time and was very afraid. I knew that Ksenia was extremely gifted, but I didn't know if she would be able to fulfill her dream of becoming a professional concert pianist. Thankfully, Ksenia's piano teacher insisted on continuing her lessons even though she was in the hospital.
I understand you have a foundation called Hope for Polio. How does it work?
Well, Hope for Polio is a charity that helps children with polio. For more information and to donate, go to www.hopeforpolio.org.
Here, Ksenia is shown laying in the hospital bed with her piano teacher Griselda. Ksenia took her lessons for 6 months in the hospital, during which she went through rehabilitation. Ksenia recalled that the most difficult part of learning to play the piano in the hospital was that she could only handle so much at a time since she had terrible aches in her legs. Ksenia could only concentrate for so long and often became frustrated with herself. And after a year, she was able to go home, and this was where she made the most progress in her studies. Just 5 years after being diagnosed with the disease, she won the first prize in an international competition. This is not mentioned later in the interview since she is very reluctant to talk about her childhood. Now we will show Juliana interviewing Ksenia in her lovely Californian home. Ksenia, it is such a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. It's great to be with you.
So tell me, was playing the piano your passion from an early age?
Yes, it was. My mom used to tell me that when I was little, I would touch the keys on the piano and would sit there for hours just making noises. But it wasn't until I was 5 years old that I started taking proper piano lessons.
I imagine you must have had many role models growing up.
Most definitely. My father used to listen to classical music when I was younger, especially Mozart and Beethoven. Their music is so inspirational that it gave me a lot of ideas when I had to compose my own music later on.
So how many concerts and symphonies have you composed so far?
I have written 41 symphonies and 22 concerts so far. The first one I wrote is called Starlight.
What did it feel like when you first performed it?
You cannot imagine how nervous I was. I was also afraid of making mistakes and having everyone laugh at me. But thankfully it didn't happen. The audience was really pleased since I was a 15-year-old girl performing in front of 2,500 people.
And finally, how does your disability affect your everyday life?
Well, my disability is a big part of my life, but I have to make the best of things and move forward. I try to be as independent as I can, but of course I need someone to help me out around the house. As a pianist, it doesn't affect me much, since I appeared seated at the piano when the curtains open.
Thank you so much, Ksenia. It has been fantastic to have you here, and I hope I see you soon.
Thank you.
Hello. Good evening. Fox News. He was saying, ¿cómo era? tentó, Flor. Se tentó.
Thank you, it's great, baby.
No. Mike.
Dale.
Sos la culpable de todo. Todos tus bloopers van a ser tuyos.
Thank you. It's really great to be with you.
No, ya está, es la casa. We are going to tell the story about extraordinary story of this. No, chicas, no. Success despite Espera, voy bien, paren. Vamos mejorando, chicas, perdonen, soy tonta.
No me digas.
Yes, no. To. Featuring is an extraordinary game. Featuring is an extraordinary. An extraordinary game.
Está grabando.
No, chicas, no puedo.
Concerts and on concerts and 200.
How many concerts?
I can compose 40 concerts. No, Mike.
¿Qué le pasa?
Milo.
Ok, basta.
Perdón.
These boots, I bought them in
Tenés
Paris.
polio, baile. Con polio mueve las piernas.
It's very unique and I love it.
El botezo de Maylin en el medio del vivo. ¿Cómo te sale en serio? No me reír. Yo puede quedar el botezo acá y empieza aquí. Habrá bostezado 80 veces.
Ok, dale. Oh.
You know, too.
El ojo de Benito.
I understand you have a foundation called Hope for Polio. I understand you have a foundation called Hope for Polio. How does it work?
Well, and to donate, go to www.
Mylin. Rose, what was it like to have your daughter diagnosed with polio?
The audience was pleased because I was a 50-year-old girl performing in front of 2,500 people.
I imagine you must have had many role models growing up.
Most definitely. My father used to listen to classical music when I was younger.
Imagine you must have had many role models.
Ay, pará. Se metió una ametralladora, ¿verdad? Lo dijo re rápido.
I imagine you must have had many role models growing up.
Most definitely. My father.
I imagine you must have had many.